Wait a minute, start all over again.
Do what?
Start all over again.
You have to have that bright light in your eye? Okay. Let's see. I'm Loren Walter Kennet Sr. My father was Wallace Elijah Kennett. My mother was Edna May Linhart. I was born in East Wenatchee, Washington, June 21st, 1925. My grandfather, my dad was born in Buffalo, New York. My mother was born in Berg, B-E-R-G, Washington, which is now George, Washington. Her dad's name was Herbert Linhart, and he died when he was 20 or 21 years old from pneumonia. And her mother's name was May Gursley, G-U-R-S-L-E-Y.
M-A-E or M-A-Y?
M-A-Y.
Okay.
My mother's name was Edna May Linhart, M-A-E.
Okay.
They homesteaded down on the Columbia River there, out of George, Washington. Right where they have the big festival there, in July they have the amphitheater down there.
Uh-huh.
She was born right there,
Huh.
where my mother was born.
Do you know when they homesteaded?
What?
Do you know when they homesteaded?
Yeah, when they homesteaded, just when my mother was born there. That'd be 1908. Yeah, 1908 they homesteaded it. See,
Do you know where they came from, by chance?
my grandmother came from Joplin, Missouri. And my grandfather came from, I don't know where he come from, someplace back east. No, he came from Ireland over here to work.
Okay.
And we found out later that he settled in Idaho, somewhere around north of Boise, Idaho. And he dropped the O in O'Hare and just went by the name of Hare, H-A-R-E. I have no idea what his first name was.
Huh. Wait, who's that?
My dad's
Your
dad.
dad's dad, okay. What about your mom's dad? Do you know where he was from?
Well, he was born and raised in Wenatchee.
Okay.
His parents were the first bricklayers in the state of Washington. They come out here from back east someplace. I have no idea.
Okay.
They built the first brick buildings in the state of Washington. They built them right there in Wenatchee. I have, my first wife's name was Phyllis Clancy. I have a son, Robert Loren Kennet by Phyllis. And I have a daughter, Patricia Ann Kennett by Phyllis. And I have a son, James Robert Kennett.
James Russell.
Huh?
James Russell.
James Russell, I'm sorry, it is James Russell. Then I have another son by Benita, and her last name was Wood, W-O-D, and my son's there is Loren. I thought his was Loren Russ. Loren Robert Kennett? No.
What's it, Lauren Jr., so it's...
It's same, Loren Walter Kennet, right, Jr. Let's see, who else? All right, let's go back up to where I have a sister by the same, she's a half-sister by my sister Sandy, was my mother. See, my mother was divorced my dad when I was 8 years old, and later on she married Scotty Huber, and they had Sandy, Huber, and Russell Huber.
How do you spell Uber?
U-B-E-R.
Okay.
And Scotty came from Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Sandy and her brother.
What was the other kid? Sandy
And Russell.
Russell.
Russell Scott Huber. He lives in Black Diamond, Washington.
Okay.
And Sandy lives in Crooked River Ranch, Oregon. They own a grocery store and service station there.
Okay.
See, who else? What else did you want to? Oh, I have 2 stepchildren,
Mm-hmm.
which is, what the hell's the one named over Seaside?
Robin.
Oh, Robin, yeah. Robin Jean. And Evans was her name before. And David Evans lives in
Woodinville, isn't it?
no, he lives in Duval, Washington. But Robin lives at, I said Seaside, but her address is actually
Warrington, is that right?
Warrington, yeah, Warrington. And her husband's name is, what the hell is his name?
Bill.
Oh, Bill Rhodes, yeah.
Right.
I don't know much about him except his mother lives in Gresham.
Okay.
Rhodes is R-H-O-D-E-S. See, what the heck else is the...
And your grandmother actually brought you up, didn't she?
Yeah, my grandmother brought me up, raised me. Nettie Mae Wooster was my grandmother from Joplin, Missouri.
Okay.
I know very little about her name. No, her name was, original name was Tinsley, T-E-N-S-L-E-Y.
And she was your mother's mother.
She was my mother's mother. She come out here to work for the railroad. No, well, she went to work for the railroad.
And then she had a restaurant and a boarding house in Yakima, didn't she?
No, she owned a restaurant in Natchez called Ma's Inn. And then my Aunt Eva bought a square block building in Yakima, and my grandmother ran the apartment up above it, up over Cresty's 5 and 10 cent store.
And when we used to come out and visit, just do something with the phone. We used to stay in that building, and it was all, I remember, to me it was a scary building.
It was what?
A scary building. It was all,
really was.
You had to go upstairs, this narrow stairway, and it was all dark mahogany wood.
Yeah.
And I remember the doors had those windows that tilted down over them so you could get circulation in the old buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And the beds were squeak. Every time somebody in the next room rolled over, I mean, there was squeaks.
Wow.
To me, it was like a haunted house.
See, I have a cousin that lives in just north of San Francisco. That's Jim Howitt. And I got a cousin that lives between Ellensburg and Cle Elum in an old bus. That's
Bob.
Bob Howitt. I'm trying to think of who else.
What about your dad's mom?
Nancy Warner lives in, Nancy and Warner is my Aunt Marie's daughter, and she lives in Eugene, Oregon. She has a daughter. I can't remember what her name is. That was Marie's daughter, and I couldn't tell you what the other one. Leslie's husband, he was the principal of schools right here in Vancouver. Eastmont High, no, he was the principal over here of the junior high. Then he went to Eastmont High School in East Wenatchee. Harry Robb. Then he left there and went to Idaho and became superintendent of schools in the just north of Boise. And then he came back to East Wenatchee, and anyway, he got fired over here for slapping a couple kids around that giving them a bad time, and their parents got him fired. So he took them to court and won the case and got $800,000 settlement out of it. And that's when he went to Idaho. What the heck was the name of that place? My wife's name is Benita. You got that down, don't you?
Yeah.
She was born and raised in Warwick, she was born in Providence, Rhode Island, and raised in Warwick, Rhode Island. And her parents came from England. I never met her dad. Her dad died before I got involved with him. And my dad, Wallace Kennett, he died, he was born in 1904, and he was 84, so you can figure that out. He died in 1988. My dad did.
Okay.
He died from he had a major heart attack. None of my family died from cancer or anything like that. So don't run in this side of the family. Nita's mother died with cancer. But none of Phyllis's side of the family ever had cancer that I knew of. They say it's inherited, but I don't believe that. What I believe cancer is from is fluorescent lights. One thing, because a lot of people who work under fluorescent lights all the time end up with cancer. That's why they changed those fluorescent lights, so now you don't have the gas in them like you used to have. You have
All right, now we're getting off the family tree track.
yeah.
And curing cancer.
Let's see. I can't tell you much more about the family that I know.
What schools did you say you went to?
What school did I go to?
Yeah.
I went to Natchez School until I was 9th grade, and then I went to West Seattle High.
Oh.
But I only went to the 10th grade, and I quit, went in the Marines.
And then, when you were in the Marines, where did you actually end up at?
Where did I end up at?
I know you went to Camp Lejeune, but...
Well, I ended up I joined the Marines here in Seattle. I went to boot camp in San Diego. Went from San Diego to Samoa, American Samoa. Then I went to British Samoa, which was up here. And I was in the 7th Marine Defense Battalion in Samoa. And I went from there to the 22nd Marines. I wasn't there very long, then I went to the 3rd Marine Regiment. I went from there to New Zealand to New Caledonia, New Caledonia to Guadalcanal, Guadalcanal to Tulagi, that's a Solomon Islands. From Tulagi back to Guadalcanal, made raids on, what the heck is a little dinky island between Tulagi and Guadalcanal, a one-day raid. Went from Guadalcanal to Wallis Island. Wallace Island back to Guadalcanal, Guadalcanal to Bougainville, got wounded in Bougainville in a bayonet thing, came back to Guadalcanal to the field hospital. They couldn't help me there, so they sent me to New Caledonia to the field hospital. And from there back to Oak Knoll, California, at Oakland, California. Then to Seattle. And from Seattle to Camp Pendleton in California. Camp Pendleton to Rhode Island. Rhode Island to Quantico, Virginia, to the FBI base there. It was on a .22 pistol range, and they eliminated it. They don't have that anymore. And from there to Jacksonville, Florida, Camp Lejeune. And I got married. I came up to Rhode Island and got married 1940. See, 45, April 45. And I was discharged from the Marines July the 5th, 1946 at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. You, Bob, was born on the Marine base in the Naval Hospital.
April 16th, 1946.
Yeah. And we lived right there on the base. I used to drive the fire truck back and forth, remember? No, you wouldn't.
Well, somewhere I saw a picture
Yeah.
you holding me on the fire truck.
And but I was stationed at the rifle range at 22 miles off the base, at the other end of the base. And I lived in Rhode Island 18 years. I worked at, my first job was working for Hasbro. Worked there a year.
Making pencils.
Used to be called Hasn't-Felt Brothers.
Making pencils, wasn't it?
I was putting the ferrule on the end of the pencil for the erasers, putting the erasers, the ferrules on them and the erasers. And I went into the pencil box part, and I was making pencil boxes, running a scoring machine for pencil boxes. I worked there a year and I quit. Went to work for Mother's Box Lunch. I worked there 8.5 years. That's a catering company. And I quit there and went to work for Tabletop Pie Company, and I worked there 8.5 years. Quit there and came out to the state of Washington and went to work for Airmac, driving truck. And I drove truck for 2 years. Then I went in the parts department and I worked there 6.5 years. So I worked 8.5 years altogether at Airmac. Then I went to work for Clark Lift. Worked there 8.5 years. And went to work on the waterfront and worked there 10 years. And retired. I worked on the waterfront for American President Lines. I was a mechanic for the Longshore Union, but I was in the IAM, International Union, which is the same union that Boeing's has for their mechanics. But everybody thinks I was a longshoreman. I was not a longshoreman. I was a mechanic for the longshoremen on the waterfront at Pier 25, Pier 46, and Pier 5, where I retired.
What did you do? What kind of stuff did you fix?
I worked on everything.
Yeah.
I worked in the electrical department, rewiring generators for the generators that was up at Dutch Harbor. I worked on the hustlers, which are trucks that pull the trailers around in the yard. I worked out in the yard fixing, rewiring the damaged lights and wires on chassis, which is trailers. I patched damaged containers that come off of the ships, or if I could fix them at the gate, I fixed them at the gate before they went out. Because a truck coming into the gate was was the driver's responsibility, or the company's that rented the truck to haul them. Once they were inside, before they went out, it was American President Line's responsibility.
Okay.
So when you went into work, you didn't know where you were going.
Huh.
You might be out on the line fixing equipment that's going on a ship or coming off of a ship or whatever. It was a good job, good place to work. You worked with the guys, not against them.
Huh.
I mean, I would say the last 4 years down there, I worked at the gate, checking the equipment coming in, making sure the tires had the proper air in them, made sure all the lights and everything worked, and then you flagged them so the people would, and you wrote it down where they were going to be parked, in what row they'd be parked in, so the mechanics would go out and fix them. But when there was slow, then you worked in the shop and you worked on whatever was there. You worked on putting new glass in the trucks, or just about anything they wanted you work on. Put mufflers on them, take the heads off the engines so the major mechanic or master mechanic could do an Indian job, or sometimes you were cutting the cab off of a truck because they couldn't get the doors to open properly. So you cut cabs off and they put new cabs right on the trucks. You never knew what you were going to do. Worked in the tire shop for almost a year one time. That was a rotten job. Take a truck tire with a rim and all on it, they weigh about 150 pounds, and you got to juggle them around. It's no easy task, but it was a job.
Yeah. Huh.
What else did you want to know?
Got all that family tree stuff figured out?
Some of it. What's
He'll have it all on film here.
what's your dad's mom's name?
My dad's mom?
Mm-hmm. Grandmother on your dad's side.
I have no idea.
They were adopted.
Huh?
Right. Okay.
They were adopted, my dad.
It didn't. Your dad, your Aunt Marie, and your Uncle Milo came out from back east on a train?
No. My dad and them all came out to Idaho with their dad. And his mother died with childbirth. It wasn't Milo, it was another child after Milo. So his dad had to he couldn't handle all the kids. There was like 9 of them. So he took the three youngest ones. It was my dad, Aunt Marie, and Milo. Took them to the orphanage in Spokane and left. He took my dad there first. Then wait a minute, he took them there. Then when Del Kennett, my dad's stepdad, had a horse ranch out of Kiona over by Prosser. He raised horses for the Army. He went to Spokane and he adopted my dad because my dad could help him around the ranch because he was 8 years old. So my dad cried all the time for Milo and Marie. So Grandpa Kennett went back to the orphanage and asked who they were, and they told him. So he adopted them too. That's how they got back together. But they were actually brothers and sisters. And later on in years, Leslie, when they were over in Idaho, found out where my dad's real dad was, and he was still alive, so she went and saw him. And I think Milo went and saw him. But Marie and my dad wouldn't go see him because they still had that grudge but and they don't know who, they never did see any of their brothers or sisters, the other ones. But the youngest one, that when my dad's mother died, they didn't save the baby either, so there were no other ones younger than him.
And then your Aunt Marie really did a pretty extensive family tree.
Yeah.
I mean, she spent like years and she traveled all around to verify stuff.
That was Leslie.
Well, I thought Marie started it, and then
Yes, she did.
She gave it to Leslie,
and Leslie,
which was her daughter.
Leslie married a guy that was a Mormon, and she turned to that Mormon religion. They went to Salt Lake City and checked up on everything, and they have the best and the most updated history on everybody in the United States, where they come from originally, and all their siblings and everything. Right in Salt Lake City, and
Maria's dead, but Leslie's still alive, right?
Yeah, Leslie's still alive, and they live in East Wenatchee.
And she's got, I mean, Donna has talked to her, and she's got, I mean, this extensive family tree.
Yes, she does.
That makes
So you might talk to her.
Okay.
I'll send her, Donna has the address and the name.
I think so.
Okay.
I think Donna got a bunch of stuff from her, like, within the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay. Cool.
And there's a Kennett that lives in Eastern Oregon that wrote me a letter and sent me a whole thing on the Kennett family, and they were, and most of it was from down around Kiona and that. I've never heard of those people. So if you're interested in it, I can take and send that information to you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be cool.
And you can call her find out what she knows about it.
Okay.
She lives in, oh, God. She lives in, Baker, Oregon. You might,
Was that the woman that, out of the blue, called me up a few years back and
Yeah.
started asking me a bunch of questions?
yeah,
And she was naming off people that I kind of knew some of the names, and
well, some of the names I'd heard of, like Howard Kennett, and some other people that, and her dad, I think her dad's name was Howard Kennett or something like that. And I asked Marie at the time, and she knew him. But I'd never heard of those people, until I talked to Marie.
yeah, I got this phone call like 4 or 5 years ago. This elderly woman said, "Hey, I got your name out of the phone book because it was a Kennett," and then she started going, do you know these people? And every once in a while she would name a name that I would kind of recognize.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finally said, you need to talk to my dad. And I gave her his
Yeah.
name and phone number, and she immediately called him up. And
She sent me a whole thing. I got it up there someplace. I'll get it together and take pictures of it, run it through and take copies of it, and I'll send you one, and
Okay.
I'll send you one too.
Okay.
I think they call that, do they call that Bakerfield?
Baker City.
Baker what?
Baker City.
Baker City, that's right.
It used to be just Baker, Oregon, and they changed it to
It's
Baker City.
City, yeah.
Just off of I-84.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
You come out of the high desert country and you go down into Baker City, it kind of gives you a nice impression of life anyway.
Yeah.
And sometime when you're out roaming around and driving around, you go over there by Redmond, Oregon, just before you get to between Redmond, Oregon and Bend, Oregon. There's a road that goes down into Crooked River Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
There's 4,000 or 5,000 people live down in there, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And they own, Sandy and her husband Chuck own the grocery store and the gas station there. Bob's been there. And Sandy works in Macy's, is it?
Yeah.
She works in Macy's in the petite women's section of Macy's in Bend, Oregon.
Huh.
Used to be the Bon Marché, and it changed to Macy's, didn't it?
Yeah. And then Milo Kennett, which should be your uncle, right?
Yeah, Milo was my uncle.
Had a daughter named Donna Kennett,
Yeah.
and then she married Monty Perotti, and they used to live in Issaquah, Washington, and then when he retired, they live in Yuma, Arizona.
Yeah. They come up to Natchez because I got a cousin in Natchez, Ted Kennett, Ted Melody. They own the liquor store in Natchez.
And that's Donna's brother.
Yeah, and he's the superintendent of big packing company in Wapato.
I mean, if you really want to get off into the
Yeah.
branches of the
Yeah.
tree. Yeah, Milo was married to
Evelyn.
Evelyn, and they actually lived in Yakima, wasn't it?
No, they lived in Natchez.
Oh, they lived in Natchez?
Yeah, and Evelyn's brother owns the Gear Works. Evelyn was Evelyn Mantell before she married Milo, and he owned the Gear Works in Seattle, but he's dead. And he went by the name of Mann, Leon Mann, M-A-N-N.
And then Marie's kids were, she just had one.
She had two daughters,
Oh, Leslie.
Leslie and Nancy. Nancy lives in Eugene, Oregon. Leslie lives in East Wenatchee. They just built a new house up there. See,
Oh, and then the other uncle, or the other name that comes in there, that the Howitts.
oh, Howard, yeah. That's Jim and Bob. I
Now,
told
where did their dad fit into the family tree?
Jim's dad was a general in the Army.
No, but where did he fit into the family tree? Somehow they're related.
Oh, well, my Aunt Eva was my mother's half-sister. My mother had two sisters, Margaret, and Margaret died when she was 16. She died with appendicitis in Yakima. They couldn't get her to the doctor in time, or the hospital in time. And Eva married Don Howitt, who was he was a forest ranger, but not, as you know, a forest ranger. He was in charge of building campsites, campgrounds with the CCs. Then he owned a company called Howitt Construction Company in Yakima, and they built service stations. He built almost every 76th service station in the Yakima Valley, from Cle Elum all the way down to Walla Walla.
And then which Howitt started Howitt Bow Company?
Oh, that was Damon Howitt. That was Don Howitt's brother.
Started making,
The bow and arrows.
and
down
went
in
around.
Yakima. They have a big catalog out with all of them.
Yeah, it was like one of the big names in bows and
And his-
archery.
His wife did all the shooting for the in the Robin Hood movie. Every bow and arrow in the original movie of Robin Hood was from, they called him Packy Howitt, Damon Howitt. But Don Howitt's dad was a forest ranger, the first forest ranger ever in the United States, back in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And see, how the heck, his mother married old man Armstrong in Natchez. She was a Cobb, C-O-B-B, but there's two different families of Cobbs in Natchez, but she was a Cobb, and then she married Don Howitt's dad. Don Howitt's mother married old man Armstrong, who had a dozen kids. And Richard Armstrong lived in Vale, Oregon. Packy Howitt lived in Vale, Oregon. Don Armstrong's brother was a fire ranger out of Natchez Ranger Station. The other brother was a forest ranger at Mount Rainier, and the other one was a forest ranger in the peninsula. When I was a kid, everybody in a small town was related. I mean, they'd jump from one bed to another. Natchez was a population of about 250 people. You were related one way or another, whether you liked it or not.
And I'm the other voice that's been talking over here in the background.
Yeah.
And I'm going to turn the tape off because it's getting
They'd
warm.
have a dance every Saturday night at the Grange Hall. And as a kid, you slept in the back room down there and they danced till they wanted to go home. Everybody brought their own booze.